Hey, welcome to Men on Everything, our show where we talk about everything. I'm Tony Scott. In New York City is Mark Clark, and he's back. And, of course, Troy Johnson from Washington, D.C. Fellas, what's going on?
Hola. Man, can't call it, Tony.
Can't call it, dog. What's up? Mark looks dapper today, doesn't he? Look at him. He's got the collar. He's got the collared shirt and the hand-stitched jacket on, and he's got the
Pocket square.
The pocket square going, man, and it's.
Well, it was a celebration to be back, gentlemen. I missed you guys.
Oh, well, thank you, man.
But you know what? This is the funniest show on television, though. I'll tell you. It's funny when you find yourself cracking up out loud, which is great. It's a great feeling. I know those guys, So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
Oh,
so you haven't been on, but you've been watching.
I've been watching. I had a computer issue and a time issue. Those two will take you out of the game, man.
Right. Well, there's been some things going on, man. Yesterday we found out about Darren Dion Van, who is in Indiana, who says he messed up by killing a woman, and then he confessed and took police to like 7 bodies total. And they say there may be more bodies.
He says there may be more.
Yeah, and he apparently is relishing in his infamy because he's famous for the wrong reasons. But he apparently, I know his ex-wife's son was on CNN this morning, and Ashley Banfield on CNN says this is his stepson. And when he got on, he goes, "I'm not his stepson." I was like, "Whoa, dude, pump your brakes." But he says that Darren Dion Van was always kind of creepy. Mm. He said that he talked to himself all the time, but the thing that made it creepy is he would also answer himself. Because usually when people talk, we all talk to ourselves at one point, but we never answer ourselves. That's because they say when you answer yourself, that's when you have a problem. And he says he answered himself. He was just weird that way, and
too bad. Too bad he didn't kill himself.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We don't answer ourselves because we know we're not gonna like what we hear.
And that's usually the case, man. So you got that going on. Then I got this story in Connecticut about another guy he's actually in prison for murder, and he's suing because he wants the prison to let him have his pornography. He says it violates his constitutional rights. He's doing 50 years, so he's not going to be out anytime soon. His name is Dwight Pink Jr.
Why do they call him Pink?
I don't know.
Well, they're trying to find out in prison.
which automatically says you will be getting enough porn in prison.
Well, yeah, but
as
he wants to. He don't want to participate. He wants to look at it. So, but you know what? I remember when I was a kid. My father used to tell me, prisoners don't have any rights. You don't get rights in prison. It's hard time.
Tony, it's so funny you said that, and I was I was walking in New York. And I thought about, is it a generational thing where our parents, there's certain things you did that took away your rights, right? Like, again, now you go to prison, you don't have a say. I saw a homeless guy. He was smoking and had some coffee. And I was like, my first thought, and I'm like, where does this come from? When I see that, it's almost like, again, how we're raised is, you can't be asking me for something and you have something. It's almost like, but I was like, where did that principle come from? I guess it's our parents. Is that how they raised us?
Yeah, there's,
If you're sick, you can't be watching TV and having fun at home.
No.
Be up in the bed, covered in some type of medical whatever.
Liniment oil.
You can't talk to nobody. You can't be walking around, right? Playing outside. So I guess it was generational.
Well, I mean, yeah, because when I was coming up, when you called in of work, you didn't even go outside to get the mail. You were required to stay indoors, whether you were a child or an adult. You're sick. It's a quarantine kind of thing. Now you call in from work, and you'll make a quick trip to Chicago and come back. You're still sick, and you may be legitimately sick, but the world goes on, and that's where the thing is now, because the world moves so fast. We really don't have time to be sick. Oh, we can take off from work. But there's still other things we got to do. We got to pick the kids up. We got to go by and get something for dinner tonight. We got to go and pay the bill before our lights get turned off. So we have these things that we have to keep doing. The world moves so fast now. We don't even have time to take all our vacation anymore.
Wow.
You saw some lightning outside. Oh, you ain't watching TV. You ain't doing nothing.
And get off the telephone too.
Yeah.
You are sitting in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, things have changed, and this is a completely different track, but it reminds me of something interesting about this. There was an attorney who represents death row inmates around the country, and he's gotten people off of death row who were wrongly convicted, and we know that's been the case. And he was relaying this story on NPR about a conversation he had with one of his clients who did go to the death chamber. And he said, this guy said to him, I got up today. They asked me what I wanted for breakfast. They asked me what I wanted for lunch. They asked me if I, wanted to talk to anybody, need paper for final letters and all this stuff. He said he had more people ask him if he needed help in the last 14 hours of his life than he had his entire life. It was like, damn.
Yeah.
You go into the big prison in the sky. I guess things change, but where are we compassionate enough with people? Are we not? I'm not trying to go on the kumbaya moment, but it's interesting, how a serial killer, for example, can walk in our midst and function just like an everyday human being. At the same time, when at night they're out running across Hammond, Indiana, killing people.
Right.
So obviously there's some gray area either way. We're not compassionate. We don't pay attention enough to some people, and then on the other hand, we need to pay more attention to people and see what's really going on with them.
I think we're in that transitional thing because, like I said, when I was a kid, it was you broke the law, you went to jail, that was it.
Yeah.
You might get parole depending on what mood the judge was in that day. And that's how it was. Yeah. I have an uncle who was riding in a car back this is in the 50s with a guy who had 2 marijuana joints under his car mat, and my uncle didn't even know that it was in there. He didn't even know the dude smoked weed. They got pulled over. My uncle did 7 years, man.
Damn.
My uncle did 7 years for that, and he never and he didn't smoke weed. He didn't know the dude smoked weed. He didn't know the weed was in the car. It was only 2 joints. He did 7 years in prison for that. Now, you transition over the course of time. Well, maybe he shouldn't go to jail for that, right? Man, well, you know what? What's his first time? Yeah, but he killed somebody. Yeah, but he didn't mean to. He was driving. He was drunk. His girlfriend had left him, so he drove. But he still got behind the wheel. Yeah, but it's his first time. We're going to put and that's how we are. We become a nation of excuses.
You can say a world. Oscar Pistorius got 5 years. He wasn't convicted of murdering his wife, but he was, convicted of, or not wife, but girlfriend, but, aggravated manslaughter. So he's going to get 5 years. And they say in 10 months, he could be under house arrest in South Africa.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. He didn't have a leg to stand on that case.
This is what we're gonna do with him, man.
That's how we're doing it.
That's a see. We missed him, man. We missed that. So.
Yep.
But like I said, it's every time something goes wrong, and then people. I remember when I did the radio show. I don't know how it is. We're in New York State or in the D.C. area. I don't know what the law is, but here in Missouri, if you 2 guys are in a car and Troy shoots and kills me, you get charged with murder too, Mark.
Damn.
Because you were with him.
Wait, who was that?
You were with him, so you get charged with murder also.
In Missouri?
In Missouri.
That happens. That's in several states. I don't know all the states. But
now, personally speaking, maybe because I'm from another generation, I don't have a problem with that. That doesn't bother me at all.
Well, people from my generation will say, shouldn't have been in the car.
Yeah.
Together, right? Hardcore when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I got, speaking of consequences and speaking of the effects of maybe not having or not caring enough, Troy, as I saw last night, you mentioned one of the African-American suspects for serial killing, and then there's another case here, or is it in Virginia, Troy, the brother with the dreads? And so as I watched that, and you see, we always joke about you don't see African-American serial killers. Well, you're seeing them. What I thought about, guys, is, when you talk about the inner city and you talk about these kids, this generation of black men and people of color and poor people, poor people who nobody cares about because they're poor and you're not poor. We think it doesn't affect us. Guess what? It does affect us.
Sure.
And these kids, regardless of race, the people, the forgottens, and the kids of the forgottens end up being these people who, because they were forgotten and nobody asked them, Troy, how are you? And cared about them and gave them good schools and gave them health care and gave them food, they grow into men who are heartless and who have no soul.
And it's a cycle, Mark. It goes around and it keeps going round and round. I spoke about this on my podcast last week that, I have a cousin who was like a brother to me, and his life didn't turn out as well as he probably wanted to. He passed away a couple of years, but he has a son who has been in and out of the penal system, and about a month ago, he and his nephew got caught breaking into a house next door to a cop. And so the cop comes over and catches them. And my cousin who's been in the penal system, he's on parole and he's got a gun on him. So there was a struggle over a gun. The gun went off. Nobody got shot. But it's that same cycle, right? He and so my second or third cousin, who's 20 years old, now he's looking at time because he's being charged. He didn't have the gun. My cousin did, my second cousin. But the younger one's being charged because he was with him in the commission of armed robbery. So he's getting charged with armed robbery too. But it's that cycle. And until we figure out a way to put a wedge in that cycle to stop it from keep coming around, man, this is going to happen. And I'm talking about this is going to happen 2 or 3 generations into the future, man, unless we figure out what to do.
It starts with caring. Number one, and number two, Tony, I'm going to ask you to step down because you come from a family that's kind of out of control. Jonathan Clark called. So we can't really be associated with Tony Scott.
Well, I mean, we all have those family members, and you don't. I mean, and now because, like I said earlier, the world goes so fast. A lot of us don't have time to mentor like we should, but we just don't. I mean, the world's going so fast. I got 2 jobs. Wife's got a job. We got kids. We come home. I got to raise my kids. I don't have time to be mentoring, and that's where we are now. And until we figure this out, it's going to keep happening. The other side of that is the people who have never had that experience in their life, who don't know what it's like to struggle, who don't know what it's like, to have to fight for every damn thing in their life. That's not their reality, so they have no sympathy at all for people who have to go through this because that's not their life. They cannot relate.
But you know what? It is, there's a cause and effect in all of this. And, we've seen movies like Crash that depict that, situations where you don't think this person is going to ever come in contact with you.
Right.
You have neighborhoods that are separated by race, unfortunately, in the United States. You have socioeconomic issues. You have people who we just have not meshed as a society in a lot of regards. And you have systemic issues that really do come down to, in a lot of cases, how do we make sure that the least are taken care of?
Right.
And there's a unwillingness to really drill down and fix those problems in this country. I think some people would say that legitimately. And it's the same. It's the same in other parts of the world as well. We just have a disconnect from suffering from each other as world citizens. India has a caste system. So and it's been around for thousands of years. So there are people that are subjugated because they are outsiders, and I mean they've been working to try to correct those things. But you're talking about policy that's been used in that part of the world for 1,000 years. It's kind of hard to fix that in 2 decades.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of truth to that.
You are Patel. Patel will not work here.
Stop it. Shonda Rhimes went off on one of her Twitter followers because the Twitter follower says, a lot of gay sex on who on Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. What's up with that? And Shonda was like, it's not gay sex. It's just two people loving each other. It's not gay sex. And there again, though, I think there's you have people who are just uncomfortable with it, and to some degree, I'm in that because I wasn't. That's not my life. Mm-hmm. And then when you see it on television, it's like, whoa. And then when you see like two guys as a man, that just looks awkward to me. But I won't say it's awkward if I see two women going at it like that. And that's probably because I'm a guy.
And Tony, we need to clarify. You got to say it's not my life anymore. San Francisco.
You can't keep nothing off the air, can you? Just can't do anything. Shonda tweeted to this person, there are no gay scenes, there are scenes with people in them. And she says, if you are suddenly discovering that Shondaland shows have scenes involving people who are gay, you are late to the party. If you use the phrase gay scenes, you are not only late to the party, but also not invited to the party. Bye, Felicia. This is Shonda Rhimes in her tweets last night. I love you all, tweeples, but even the ones who still need to grow. And remember that at some point, someone discriminated against you, too.
Damn, bye, Felicia. You got the bye, Felicia in there?
Put the bye, Felicia in there, man.
Shonda's hip. Go ahead, bro.
But I you know what? And the thing is, like, my father used to always say, I don't understand the gay thing. He says, but that's not me. He says, it's not for me to understand. I'm supposed to love everybody. So... it's not for me to understand. I don't get it. He goes, I'll never get it. But he said, but I'm old.
Damn. Props to Pops, man.
And so
with that open
and so
the head with a bat, Tony.
but and that's where I think like the world is transitioning, because it wasn't that long ago that there was no way that any state in the union would pass a law that would say, gay people can get married. And even though they did, those laws are being overturned, one after the other being overturned. But, 10, 15 years ago, people would be outraged and would be like, how can we fix this? And now we're like, yeah, whatever, fine. Let's move on to something else. So I think on some things we're transitioning, but I think one thing we haven't transitioned is race.
And it's funny when you say that, Tony. I shouldn't say any, but a lot of minority groups, not just racially minorities, but minority groups have used the blueprint of the civil rights generation to move their agendas. Mm-hmm. Now, like you said, we have equality in marriage, we have equality with women in the workplace, but the tone was set by the civil rights movement, by the Dr. Kings and others like that. But it is interesting that while we're making these strides, ones that would make Dr. King happy, it has been a leapfrog. Mm-hmm. The Hispanics in some cases have leapfrogged over African Americans. Gays have leapfrogged. Arguably. Yeah. Women have leapfrogged. So you're right. We're correcting a lot of the issues in this country, but then again, there are quite a few that aren't getting addressed for some reason.
Well, there was a university here in Missouri who the students decided to have a protest, and they had it, and there was a couple things that happened. But I was reading some of the dialogue online of people going back and forth, and one guy says a couple things that he said that he got called out on, and it made me think, wow, we really haven't really gotten far. We've made advances, but we haven't gotten far, because he said to the effect, he says, you won your rights, let's move on. But why did African Americans have to win their rights? They were born with these rights. They were born in this country with these rights. Why did they have to win them? You didn't have to win them, And the other thing is, his thing was, and he said this: if we stop talking about racism, it'll go away. No. And I was like, wow, wow, that's the disconnect, Mark.
Right, and I think the problem with African Americans, to be honest, is there are African Americans who feel that same way. See, I think, a movement has to be supported by those who support the movement, right? And I think African Americans hop in and hop out when it comes to this movement. We're not clear on what we want. One of the techniques that people who are fighting for their rights use, when somebody says something wrong or out of line, then everyone has to express their displeasure and unhappiness with it and not stand for it. Black folks don't do a good job of that because black people will quickly say, and a black person will say it, hey, we're not monolithic. We all have different thoughts. Okay, right. So if that's the case, you really can't have a movement if you're not monolithic because we're fighting for the same cause. So I think we have these mixed messages. Some people don't want to talk about the race issue. Black people will say that. I don't want to talk about it at work. I don't want to talk about it. So therefore, it takes away the power of the discussion. And so then when something crazy does happen, people finally kind of want to say, So I think that's one of the problems. Like you said, Troy, the leapfrogging is there. Let's say the gay movement, for example. If somebody says something crazy, best believe there's a barrage of social media energy and people stepping forward. And, and so that's why then when that happens, the people who say those things are almost warned that you can't do it. I think with us, with African Americans specifically, there's a whole bunch of different views, and therefore it weakens the movement. And so I think that's really what it is, So like right now, you can't really get black folks on one page on a list of 5 things that they really want to see as far as the culture being respected as African Americans. You just can't, I think you could if you ask that question, pose that question for the gay movement, I think it's pretty clear what the goals are,
Is it because because black folks can't get together on these things, or is it because the list is so long and they're trying to get it down to 5 is impossible?
Well, you just have people. I think Mark kind of said it very well. People, you don't have to be monolithic, but it might be important to coalesce around certain things. Can we all agree on this? Can we all agree on key issues that we think as a people that we can agree on? Now, there's a whole world of other issues on the table, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe. Can we all just get on board on this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been problematic because you don't have, who's the leader? And in situations where there isn't a leader and there is not a leader needed, you don't have people stepping up and taking on the charge. I
had a meeting. I went to a press conference with AARP yesterday, focused on black issues, black and Latino issues for AARP. And so one of the stats was 50-plus-year-old African Americans control $15 billion annually in New York.
Wow.
What? $15 billion annually in New York. And again, but no connection, no movement, that's a lot of money. I was just thinking, guys, y'all know, I'm Mr. Conspiracy, right? But when you look at African Americans, people of color, groups of people in cities and things, racism or race, if that $15 billion walked away from New York would be devastated, right?
Yeah.
So there's very intricate games that are played with race that we aren't aware of, that we buy into each and every day. I thought about you, Troy. That block, that's the other part. That's like 70% of the voters too. 50 to 64-year-olds. So they were saying that what hurts is, and that's across the board. So in general, like 75% of the votes come from like that 50-plus group. The young people aren't participating, right?
Right.
But if you break down just the African American part and all that clout that you could wave around if you've only voted, it could really make a difference. So because we don't have a voice, or we're not connected together with concerns, then we just waste that power. And there's a, that's by design. That's by design.
By design. It's also co-opted too, because there are people. Since you want to go conspiracy theory, this is not even conspiracy theory. We know that there are people in the community who do know about that power, exactly. And they usurp the power.
Yep. Because
they either don't disseminate information, and that could be a city alderman, it could be an elected official, it could be a community person. I mean, and this happens in all kinds of cities, not just New York City. But those people are, not the big cog in the wheel. They're a small gatekeeper. But let's say you're a community leader that has a couple of high rises that have, 15, 20,000 older Americans living in it, and some other people in your community, and you're not getting information out to them, or you're not telling them that they could have a community meeting with the mayor or with somebody else. That's what happens. It's not just us, because we generally elect people, and this is for anybody. We're supposed to elect people and have people that represent our interests on a daily basis. Going back to what we talked about originally, because Tony's got to pick up the kids, because Mark has to work 3 jobs, because Troy has to commute back and forth to work. So there are people that are supposed to be doing those things, but oftentimes they aren't. And we've heard those stories too.
Yeah.
Well, how come these dollars haven't gone to this community center? And if the dollars aren't going to the community center, then the old folks can't come down and play chess. They can't have a meeting together. They can't do whatever the case may be. It's failure. And we've settled for less in many cases. And then you see some communities that are super served because you have people that volunteer. You have people that have time on their hands that also hold folks accountable, and they get what they're supposed to get.
Yeah.
Because all this comes back to the fact that, let's even put it this way, if you don't participate in the process, let's say, as a community leader or you're in tune with all the issues, you know what? You got some of this, though, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And this
Hey.
But the reason why I say that is because it's a 10.
Yeah.
Young man.
The reason why I say that is because you're paying tax. You're paying taxes. So your money is supposed to go back into the greater good, into the community. That's what the taxes are for.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was reading also, and a lot of people are not happy that L'Oreal bought Carol's daughter.
Mm-hmm. I saw that. Carol's daughter.
Yeah, the hair care company and stuff. That
Black-owned business.
Yeah.
They're not happy?
They're not happy because, they're saying, here's another black company sold out to a white company. Someone else says, I'll never buy Carol's products or Carol's daughter's products again. And it's like, well, why?
Capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, that's the game in this country. That's what happens. Did you quit watching BET when Bob Johnson sold his company? Well, yeah, you may have, but I mean, the point is that that you're allowed to do that, and you shouldn't be criticized. I guess people feel like they abandoned them, but L'Oreal says, we're going to own them, but we're not going to change anything. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know.
We are back to we talked about, guys. We don't talk about business and capitalism when we really should. The end game. When she made these products over her stove and sold them out of her home, her end game, her beginning game was, I like doing this, I have a great product, people seem to like it, right? Then when you open a business, your goal in business is to make money. Mm-hmm. And I think we have this community model that is broken. You got to have money to fund the community. So we can't look at business as bad, And the irony to me is those same people, when's the last time they bought a product from Carol's daughter? Were they there when she needed startup money and startup capital? I don't know. But I'll just say that we mix these conversations all the time. If it's Tyler Perry's movie, if it's Carol's daughter's product, if it's BET, we mix the conversation, and we really got to get down to the business. And then what's the end game of it? The end game of business is making money. The end game of serving the community is serving the community. They're two different animals. We somehow get it all twisted around. I think we're just misguided.
Well,
That's a good point.
I think because you have examples of companies, theoretically that did not quote unquote sell out. They kept it in house. They continue to run it. Maybe that's not the way business. Ebony Jet, for example. I mean, they stayed family owned. They stayed in their realm, and they were able to create their own empire without having to sell to Time Magazine or the Chicago Tribune or somebody else. They were able to maintain it themselves, and there are just very few examples of that. Carol's Daughter might be a different case, though, because I think maybe people feel like, if this is a product that you grow up using, there are a lot of women that enjoyed their products. Maybe they felt like it's not going to be the same because big company A owns it. And to be quite honest, their concerns may be correct. It's not. You got to be upset about that. With Budweiser ain't the same because it ain't made in St. Louis.
Well, it still is, but I get your point.
I think there's something to that.
Yeah, and you're actually Troy. You're right on that. From the standpoint of, you're right. The quality of the product will probably be worse because big companies cheapen it and
they say they're going to make it the same way, just like Tony said. But I mean, the other side of the problem with this whole corporate situation is we're constantly bombarded with advertisements about what this is. It's all natural. It's all BS because of what you said. Because people are in it, corporations are in it to make money. But there are companies that make natural products, natural foods. You don't have to sell out completely to be a successful company. That's a choice. It's a corporation's choice to operate the way they want to. How you're going to make a profit? How much of a profit do you want to make? If you want to maximize your profit by driving down cost, shipping stuff off to other countries to have people that aren't going to get paid as much to do it, and then cheapen the quality of the products that you use to make the final product, you can do that. Just because this corporate doesn't make it right. Or you can be like other corporations that decide, we're going to grow our own vegetables. We're not going to use a big slaughterhouse to use the cuts of meat that we use. We're only going to do this on our own. It's a choice.
And I think the message for people should be, it creates an opportunity. If you want that natural product, create it yourself. Because like you said, Troy, I think we want to project on other people's lives. Carol's Daughter made the moves that she had to make for her brand and for her product. If you want something different, this creates an opportunity for you to make a Carol's Daughter, better. Like my numerologist or my astrologer, she makes this great soap that she brings to me every Tuesday and Thursday. It's like Carol's Daughter. It's very great. It's great. There's always opportunity if you're not happy with Carol's Daughter. But we can't. I think black folks, we try to project our own happiness and displeasure on other people's stuff. That's her stuff. That's her decision. Like you said, Troy, she could take the money that she made from this deal, and the sky's the limit. Who knows what she wants to do, what the end game is? It'd be like
might come up with something else.
It'd be like Oprah. If Oprah had a local show that was really popular, and then the network wanted to do it, and she's like, no, I don't want to leave Chicago. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the whole purpose of capitalism. And I think we have this kind of a love affair or kind of pie in the sky view. And like you said, Troy, if somebody's not doing something quality-wise the right way, you can always do it yourself. And that's the message I think we should push more so than hopping on somebody who decided to make a bigger deal, I think we kind of, we're reactionary as opposed to proactive.
Well, we like to beat people up.
Exactly.
We enjoy that. We've become a nation of haters. we like, it's easy to hate. It's easy to hate. I mean, it's easy to criticize.
The United Hates of America.
and we'll leave it right there. So,
United Hates of America.
See, You put that. You need to patent that one, man. You need to get a copyright on that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
All right, see now, stop. We ain't gonna do nothing. That's a $1 seller.
Well,
is it?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna keep that in mind.
I'm going to register that domain right now. So, yeah, like I can pay for that. So, we're going to wrap up here. We're at about a little over 35 minutes. So, appreciate you watching. We're also doing it on. Huh?
I got one more before we go.
Okay, go ahead, man.
What about the movie Dear White People? Anybody see it?
No, have you seen it?
I did see it.
Okay.
I did see it. I thought it was interesting. You know, we're having these dialogues about race in America, and this one is cerebral. You know, it's got some funny moments, but it kind of reminded me of, and I don't want to tell the storyline or anything like that, but it reminded me, I don't want to put it on par with a Spike Lee movie, but you know, when you remember movies in the 90s, and not just Spike Lee movies, there were movies that got to a real core issue and talked about it in great detail, really unraveled it and tried to find the storyline. You haven't seen that in a long time.
No.
Thanks to Tyler Perry. But I'm just saying, you haven't seen that in a long time. Something, you know, a real brain twister. And this one is kind of that way. I think a lot of people, it might almost be, you know, I was in a theater, and there weren't a lot of people in the theater, and when those real cerebral moments came, it was awfully quiet.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know if everybody can grasp everything that's going on, but you might need a little cliff notes before you go. But it's an interesting movie. I'm interested to see how people react when it really, you know, when folks really start getting out to see it.
I got to see that. And also, we didn't touch Ebola, but it's best not to touch Ebola, I guess. That's what's don't touch it.
Well, I read yesterday that the Pentagon has come up with these Ebola squads. It's a group of 30 people, 5 doctors, 20 nurses, and 5 trainers. That if there's an outbreak somewhere in the country, that they will be dispatched to that area to, you know, fix it, get it together, whatever word you want to use.
It's going to be like Criminal Intent without Shamar Moore. Right. Gonna hop a jet.
Criminal Minds.
Criminal Mind, yeah.
Man.
I will say this about Ebola conspiracy. So hold that up. Thank you.
Yeah, you sent me that article. It's on my to-do list to read and all that. And
classic. It's a classic, Mark Clark.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
It has all of the finer points of my conspiracy. Yes. Conspiracy.
I know we're way over time, Tony, but you know, and the one other thing, the Darren Wilson, Michael Brown shooting in a development.
Yeah.
Blood was found in the car on the uniform of Darren Wilson and on his gun, and the blood was Michael Brown's.
Yeah, but I'll say this: we learned in the OJ trial that police are not above planting evidence. I mean, the police in L.A. have never been able to explain how that blood got on that back gate, that blood that had that chemical in it that only gets on the blood once it's put in one of these evidence tubes. So how did that blood get this? So they've never been able to explain that. They hum and haw every time it was brought up. I'm not saying OJ is innocent or guilty. I'm just talking about the fact that there apparently was some blood planted in that case 20 years ago. Here, I mean, and then some people here locally are saying, okay, what does that have to do with Michael Brown being shot? And I think what it has to do with goes to maybe Darren Wilson's state of mind. You know, and to me, a couple things. Darren Wilson apparently was leaked information, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but supposedly he said that he feared for his life. So anybody who fears for their life, why do you chase someone you're fearing? If you fear for your life from that person, why did you go after him then? Why didn't you get backup? I never known when it got that serious that you didn't call for backup? Nothing? I mean, Michael Brown walked away. Whatever happened in that car, Michael Brown turned around and walked away. And you didn't call for backup. You went after him and shot. You shot a man you feared. I don't understand that. I need answers to those questions. And there's a lot of people who are saying now, and I don't think it's fair to say that there's not going to be an indictment because all this information is starting to trickle out, and people in this area, St. Louis area, are really fearful of what may happen if there is no indictment.
And it's still a couple of weeks away, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it could come at any time, but yeah, it's supposed to be wrapped up by the middle of next month. So I don't know exactly, where this is going to go if there is no indictment. And, a lot of people are calling for, Bob McCullough should have stepped aside a long time ago, the prosecuting attorney, because of his close ties to police. And yet he refused to step down. The governor wouldn't tell him to step down. And that's been a real sore spot here, because you feel like because of his closeness and what a lot of people feel is his inability to be objective and be unbiased, that the fix was in from day one.
Wow.
So it's starting to get a little tense around here, man. The closer we get to November, there are protests going on every night still. And you start to feel a little bit again, and the police release video of what their perspective is from having to take this abuse from these protesters. And I'll say, if you look at it from their perspective, yeah, but you're talking about getting verbally abused. They are getting cussed out. They are getting all kinds, they're getting called all kinds of names and all that, and yet they're doing nothing, But on the other hand, the protesters are saying, well, that's been happening to us for my whole life. So welcome to my world, so there just needs to be something done and something done. If he's not going to get indicted, and if a lot of people say the city's going to burn, we need to get to it and get it over with, because this is crazy. This man should have been charged with murder a long time ago. And then some people say they're saying that they are not necessarily pro Darren Wilson, but they're pro police. And and I think that's a really fine line right now. That's a really thin line, because given the emotion and everything that's going on here.
And to say you're pro police, just like those idiots that raise the money. This speaks to, again, how far away we really are. If you as a human don't understand how in this very volatile situation, to say you're pro-police, what are you saying?
You're for law and order.
Yeah. Well, what are you saying? You know what I'm saying? It's a code. It's a code. No human being with common sense is against people. Is against law and order. Mm-hmm. I'm pro. That's ridiculous. You're picking a side. You're saying I don't support that black guy. I support the way things should be, which the police represent, and that's a signal. It's almost like Troy, we started this conversation about that race piece, and that's what we're talking about. These codes of people. You say something without saying something, and it's just. I got to tell you, living in Missouri, Virginia, Mississippi, these places still have the same ghost that haunts the conversations and the intent of the people. I'm for the police. What are you talking about, man? Who's against the police? We're against the injustice. That's what people are against, injustice. But I'm for the police. So that's the kind of stuff that And again, you're driving around, these things, and it just drives you crazy. You try to be cool, you try to be, objective on everything, and it's very frustrating.
Well, all right, then we will officially leave it right there. Then, so we are Men on Everything. We do
Tony. No,
we do a show called Men on Scandal, where we recap every episode of Scandal. Last week's episode of Scandal was ridiculous. Yeah. Looking forward to this week, so look for that towards the end of the week. So
good job, guys. I was looking at that like, ooh, it's gonna be a ooh. Yeah, you killed it though. You killed it. You hit every point. I was like, all right.
We're doing our best, man. We're doing our best. So
that's right.
How self-righteous is Fitz though? How self-righteous is this?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's true.
Yes, he is.
Yes, but we'll get into it.
Press like the president.
We'll get into it coming up later in the week, so look for that at menonscandal.com. If you haven't watched the latest recap, you can do it there. All right, thanks for watching, subscribing, that kind of thing. I appreciate you so much. In New York, that's Mark Clark. In Washington, D.C., that's Troy Johnson. I'm Tony Scott, and we'll see you
in St. Louis.
In St. Louis, in my basement. We'll see you next time.